Madam Chair, I was going to recommend, I know there's been some dispute on who gets to speak and still speak. I wouldn't mind allowing all three people to speak one more time as a rebuttal. I know we're not doing an official quasi-judicial, but I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Okay.
It could be in reverse order, the same order, I don't.
No objection here, Madam Chair.
Okay. Let's do reverse order, then we'll have rebuttal. Lennar, come on out. 5 minutes. If you want to say any last words. Mr. Kirshner.
That's not to preclude us not having questions after the fact.
No, that's fine.
Mitch Kirshner, Gray Robinson, 225 Northeast Madison Boulevard. As we went last, I don't really have much to rebut other than what I said. I certainly do think that, you know, if you want to have another round of this, again, I think it's prejudicial because what am I going to rebut? I already said what I had to say. Lennar had what they had to say. I think you said 10 minutes each. I think the contracts speak for themselves. I think it's improper, and I would ask that you put a stop to this now. I really do think so. Or I'm going to, well, I think it's time to stop. You said what the rules were. I went last, and who am I going to rebut? I said what I had to say. So I'd say it's not fair, and I'm going to say that, again, Mr. Schiller had an opportunity. He chose, or his clients chose to have the president and vice president go up. And a hard act to follow he was, but I followed. That's it. I'd ask not. There's no, you have the contracts. The contracts, or at least you have our contract, maybe you have their LOI. It should speak for itself. And I'd ask that now I don't leave here and then have rebuttals made to which I can't answer. I think it's patently unfair. It's not what you said you were going to do. And I would just ask you to reconsider that.
Thank you, Mr. Kirshner. Mr. Schiller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the chance to rebut some of that misinformation. And instead of me doing it, I'm going to have Kevin Rattery, who previously spoke to you, to rebut some of the assertions made by Lennar.
Good evening again. Kevin Rattery, 1140 Southwest 20th Avenue, Boca Raton, Florida. I think in the 25 years that I've been doing this, it's the first time I've ever had somebody try to impugn my character with regard to statements that I made on the public record to a sitting commission or city council. So let me go through the points that were made, and if you recall the slide that had the 5 elements to it, which I'm happy to have put up again if you would like, but I think is unnecessary. Section 807, and I am reading specifically from the February 22nd contract submitted to Mr. George Brown, received by the city manager's office, signed by Mr. Kirshner. Section 807, conditions precedent. The obligation of buyer to proceed to closing is subject to the satisfaction of each of the following conditions. Part E. Public sanitary sewer lines and facilities are installed and available to serve the property within public right-of-way. Clearly, the availability of water, of sewer, is a condition precedent to their closing. The obligation of buyer to proceed to closing is subject to the satisfaction of each of the following conditions. Part F. There be no material adverse change in the physical condition of the property. That addresses 2 of the 5 that were on the list. Again, I won't read Part 07 again, conditions precedent, but it obligates a seller's rep and warranty that at the time of contract you are not aware of any environmental issues associated with the property. You are aware of environmental issues associated with the property that were provided to you by Mr. Compson as part of his transaction. Therefore, you are making a rep that you know is factually inaccurate, which is a condition precedent to closing of Lennar and their contract. Section 1202 of the contract, moratoria. If at the time of closing there is a moratorium on building, platting, water and sewer, or other moratoria prohibiting or delaying USDA financing or buyer's ownership, development, or operation on the property, including without limitation a moratorium on the issuance of building permits or certificates of occupancy. Buyer has the right to extend closing for a period not to exceed 180 days, at which time, if the moratorium still exists, buyer shall have the option to terminate the agreement. That is a condition precedent to closing. So we've addressed the environmental, we've addressed the sewer, that's both capacity and lines being available, and we addressed the material change on property. All 5 of those that were in my presentation are, in fact, conditions precedent to closing in the contract. I do take offense at Mr. Kirshner's representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radry. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Comparato.
I would like to reiterate that Compson's proposal has received, I believe, over 1,000 emails supporting it from members of the community. I don't know what the count is on the other groups. I again say that I think this whole process tonight with 5 hours notice was inappropriate. There was no public notice in newspapers or online. It was not on the agenda. I think it should be postponed to the 19th. And I think that our proposal is very valid and should have fair consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Comparato. We appreciate that. We'll close this